Hello and welcome to another installment of Sci-Fi-Night Ranking, where we rank our favorite movies, series, episodes, and so on. So in this episode, we're gonna get around to something we surprisingly haven't really touched upon much before, the Star Wars movies. Obviously, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd and have been ever since I was a little boy. The years have given us the original trilogy, the hated prequels, and the interesting resurgence via the new trilogy, as well as the spin-off movies. So with the next installment, The Last Jedi, nearing its release in December, it's time to rank these classic flicks. Let's start off with a number 8 spot and the worst Star Wars movie ever, Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones. Okay, so yeah, I know this might be a little controversial, but I stand by this being the overall worst. It's such a stale, hollow, soulless film. It's the most CGI-ridden of all the prequels, to the point where pretty much the entire film is shot in front of a blue screen. This is where we first get introduced to whiny bitch Anakin.
Excuse me, I'm in charge of security here, milady.
And let's not forget what may very well be the worst line in cinema history.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Is there any good stuff in the film? I guess some of the designs are a bit creative, some of the characters look kinda cool, but otherwise I can't really think of anything I truly like about the film. Like, it's honestly pretty fucking terrible when you think about it. Everybody always points to the finale and the Battle of Geonosis as the film's saving grace, and while it's entertaining, it's definitely more exciting than literally everything that's happened up until that point, but it's not really that good in my opinion. It all feels so artificial and stale. Everything is CGI and I just can't really get into it. And the rest of the film is mostly just a boring telling of a terrible and confused script, and the worst Star Wars movie ever, so let's just leave this bag of AIDS behind us and move on. And at number 7, we'll land at Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace, the film that brought our hopes up with a fantastic trailer, only to shit on all of us with Jar Jar Binks, Jake Lloyd, and midichlorians. In my opinion, the biggest problem with Phantom Menace is all the idiocy that it sets up story-wise and in terms of continuity. The CGI hasn't aged well at all, Jar Jar is still just as annoying as before, and they don't really know what they're doing. I do, however, think that this film gets a little too much hate. After all, Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor are great actors and well cast for their respective roles. Composer John Williams gave us another classic Star Wars track with a Duel of the Fates. Darth Maul is a very cool villain. Sure, he's got the personality of a toothbrush, and his look and lightsaber are replacements for actual character, but I don't know, it still kinda works. The pod racing sequence actually felt a little bit Star Wars, which I enjoyed, and I guess that's pretty much most of the good stuff I'd actually have to say about it. The rest of the film is a jumbled mess that even lacks a clear main character. Is it Qui-Gon? Is it Obi-Wan? Anakin doesn't show up until half of the movie, so it can't be him. Seriously, it shouldn't be this hard to figure out who the main character is. The plot is a mess. The lightsaber duel at the end is the only really cool part. There is some stuff to like about it, but overall, this is mostly just a bad Star Wars film.
He can help you.
The Force is unusually strong with him.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Next, we move on to number 6 and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is the first okay film of the prequels, and while it definitely puts the first two to shame, it's still not really a great film though. Let's talk about what it does well, however. The battle scenes are actually pretty damn fun, especially the opening sequence in space. They don't pull any punches when it comes to executing Order 66. And I just feel like it's the best looking and constructed of the prequels. But it's not a great movie, it just happens to be the best of the worst. And I guess that's really all I have to say about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I feel is really silly and overdone, and at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I do think kind of works. So yeah, I guess I can't really say more about it. It's the best of the prequels, but that isn't necessarily saying much.
Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?
The Senate will decide your fate.
I am the Senate.
Who the fuck is this asshole?
This brings us to the possibly controversial number 5 spot, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. The movie that started it all. George Lucas' classic film gave us a whole universe of exciting and heartfelt space adventure to explore for years to come, and it's pretty damn great. Or well, mostly great. I mean, I can already feel all the dislikes coming from hardcore Star Wars fans calling this blasphemy, but hear me out. The thing is, I always felt this was the weakest of the original trilogy, and let's face it, it hasn't really aged as well as the other two. Some parts do come off as more cheesy, and the overall production just isn't as good as the others. Still though, it serves as a great introduction to both the story and the world that we all know and love. The story is solid though, a little bit simple, the characters are very fun but not very developed, and yeah, there's not really a whole lot more to be said. I just sort of feel that it doesn't leave quite as strong of an impression when compared to the others, and it doesn't have any of the flash of the newer films.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Overall, I don't feel like A New Hope really excels a whole lot aside from some of the performances from Alec Guinness and Harrison Ford. Peter Cushing is also great, of course, and yeah, that's about it. It's a classic space adventure that will remain a classic for a long time, but it doesn't really outdo any of the other ones coming up here.
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
So, what could be better in Episode 4? Well, it's a little story that leads up to it, RogueOne. So, this is kind of an interesting placement in that it's the one Star Wars film that feels the least like a Star Wars film and more like a gritty war movie. And it actually really works. It's got such a unique atmosphere and just sets up so many awesome moments, especially towards the end with the reveal of Darth Vader. Felicity Jones was great as Jyn Erso, and the rest of the cast were all very fun, especially the robot K2SO.
The captain says you are a friend. I will not kill you.
But while there were plenty of cool characters, most of them didn't really have personalities as such. Everyone is mostly just kind of dark and brooding, even our main character. Now, admittedly, I don't want a whole bunch of comic relief, and this darker mood does fit the overall theme of the story, but... Good. I don't know. Jyn is a well-portrayed but not terribly interesting protagonist, and while the filmmaking in itself is top-notch, in the end, this is a story where we already know what happened, which isn't really the fault of the film itself. So yeah, it's a very well-made film with an explosive climax that pretty much accomplishes everything it sets out to do, which was to create a war film set in the Star Wars universe.
Congratulations. You are being rescued. Please do not resist.
Alright, we're at the top 3, and the third spot was to Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. The grand return of Star Wars, like real Star Wars, not green screen midichlorian Jake Lloyd Star Wars. This Disney and J.J. Abrams spearheaded project was ambitious, risky, and it paid off. Okay, sure, they didn't take that many risks, but honestly, they did exactly what they should have. They gave us the old stars, who handed over the honor of carrying the franchise to our new characters Rey, Finn, Kylo Ren, and Poe Dameron, and they honestly do a pretty great job of carrying the film. Sure, Kylo Ren is a little whinier with his helmet off, but to be fair, he's a young, confused, anguished man still trying to learn the Force. Obviously, he's going to be angsty and irritated.
It escaped capture aboard a stolen Corellian YT model freighter.
The droid stole a freighter.
Not exactly, sir.
I mean, at least he has a personality and not just a cool look. Did the film resemble A New Hope a little too much? Yeah, it did. But I didn't feel it did it too much aside from the ending. If you dislike it, I can totally get that, but for me, it just had the right balance of pretty much everything. Sure, some stuff was a little over the top, like the Death Star now being a planet that shoots 5 world-destroying blasts instead of 1, but overall, The Force Awakens was really an appropriate title because it truly awoke the Force inside me and reignited my Star Wars love. It was a fun, exciting, well-produced and well-acted mixture of old and new, leading us to a new generation of Star Wars, and I really just enjoyed it, even with cheesy parts. Nah, I'm gonna be frank, I flat out loved it, I stand by it, I don't care.
Solo, we'll figure it out. We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
We're at 2nd place, and it of course goes to Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Okay, so full disclosure, Return of the Jedi is technically my favorite Star Wars film, and it's without a doubt the Star Wars movie I've seen the most times, but I can't really in all honesty call it the best. There are flaws with it. Yes, the Ewoks are silly. Sure, there might be a bit too much going on at the end, but I don't care. Return of the Jedi is still just fucking great. The Jabba's palace sequence is perfect. Admiral Akbar is awesome.
It's a trap!
Luke's green lightsaber kicks ass, and the end space battle is, in my opinion, the best in the series' history. Oh yeah, and Vader's redemption still hits me in the feels every single time. If you don't like Return of the Jedi as much, that's fine, I get that. Perhaps it's a bit too over the top and less bleak than The Empire Strikes Back, but you know what? It's kinda supposed to be. Admittedly, the middle drags a little bit, but it's weird that a Star Wars film that I like the most is the one that I have the least to say about. I mean, for me, it was a perfect conclusion to the original series, combining the darker and more serious stuff from Empire with the more fun and at times cheesy stuff from A New Hope. Would the film have been better if he visited a Wookiee planet instead of an Ewok one? Yeah, of course, but it doesn't really hold the film back for me. In the end, I still just love it.
I love you.
I know.
Alright, so of course you guys know what's our number 1 spot. The only film that can be Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Yep, here we are, a Star Wars film that managed to be dark without having to kill Jedi kids. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Revenge of the Sith. In the second installment of the original trilogy, our heroes are hunted by the Empire, pissed off that their awesome space toy, the Death Star, was destroyed, and the Empire go hard in the best, most overall well-produced and edited film of the series. Now, sure, it doesn't have a special effects that all the new films do, but for its time, the effects still hold up damn well, and more importantly, it's got the best and most well-paced story, most interesting characters, and it's a film that gave us what may very well be the most shocking film twist of all time.
No, I am your father.
The film hooks us with the opening battle of Hoth, which is brilliant by the way, and takes us to interesting places like Cloud City and Dagobah. This is also the film that gave us Boba Fett and the other awesome bounty hunters. Some could argue that this film is just considered the best because of the emotional impact it has due to the dark stuff, but this is without a doubt the film where our main characters are the most fun to follow. We get to see Han and Leia's sexual tension and relationship build, Luke starts to realize more about himself and his family, we get to see Darth Vader vulnerable, and Chewbacca, I don't know, tries a new shampoo or something? Anyway, even though Return of the Jedi is my personal favorite, The Empire Strikes Back is without a doubt the best film in the series. I mean, it's just got everything. Action, romance, humor, revelation, tragedy. It's the quintessential Star Wars movie because it truly gives us all the best elements of every film, and I have a very hard time seeing this being replaced on the number 1 spot. So that about does it for our official Sci-Fi-Night rankings. If you got a different ranking of a series, by all means, it'd be really interesting to see it in the comments below. What do you guys think? Are you guys looking forward to The Last Jedi? You should also let us know, and we'll catch you guys next time.
You will join us or die. We got Death Star. 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 We got Death Star.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.